where wealth strategies and investment wisdom collide, featuring your distinguished host and certified financial planner, Bart Zandbergen.
Welcome to the Zandbergen Report, a showcase for wealth strategies and investment wisdom. That's for our evolving world. What happened to me? First one of the decade, and I messed it up?
It's cold in here. Your brain's a little frozen today.
Wow. Lack of sleep, new year.
New year.
All right. Hello, everybody. Paul, welcome.
Welcome. This is not just a new year. This is a new decade. For those listening live, we're doing this on January 7th of 2020. This is the year of perfect vision, 2020, when all things are going to become clear.
Right.
Right? How many times have you said that, Paul?
Yeah.
A lot today.
Well, welcome everybody to the first show of the year. As Paul said, we're super excited to be here. Hope everyone had a great holiday season and a great start to the new year. And to help kick us off, we are going to talk about something very important. We are not talking about New Year's resolutions. I want to make that perfectly clear. But we are talking about goals and goal setting. What do you think about that?
I love that idea.
Paul, have you set your goals for this year?
I hate setting goals because I never do any of them. I get myself excited and then I give up. That's the problem. I don't mind the idea of planning and setting goals. It's the seeing them through.
Yeah.
Past the first month.
Right.
Oh, Paul. That answers so much, Paul.
Really, isn't it? Yeah.
So
I can't be the only one out there. See, people are nodding. They're listening right now and nodding.
I'd love to get a tweet of someone that actually says, no, Paul, that's not the way to do it.
Well, it's my favorite when you go into the gym and it is packed. You cannot.
Oh, yeah.
I went to yoga literally, and then there was not a spot in the room, and literally this is a few minutes before the class even started, and typically there's room and for a few minutes after for people to come in, and there's usually always maybe one or two spots you can make room for. No, we were packed. No more people even allowed. Now I know that's going to be pretty consistent for another month and a half, and then by March we're good. The normal people.
Yeah, exactly.
It all drops off.
Anyway.
So this is just going to be a really super open conversation. I think Letitia and I are going to kind of share different things that we do and how we do it. Paul, I'm going to start with you. However, have you ever done yearly goals? Not resolutions like I'm going to lose 5 pounds, but
resolutions I've tried. No, I honestly and truly, my father was always one of those who believed in this idea that when the new year starts, okay, let's look forward. The problem was he was always looking back too. He was always saying, so what didn't work and everything, and it just became this kind of negative thing. And I'm like, oh, geez, yeah. So it kind of got me turned off of the idea a little bit here.
So there's a part of looking back that I wanted to bring up today that I think is very important, because in looking back, this is something that I do every year, is I look back to say, okay, how did I do? Not that I'm OCD or super about any of that stuff.
Are you challenging that idea? Okay. Right.
But I'll go through and say, hey, what percentage of my goals did I meet this year? And, I'm usually in the 75 to 85% range, because we'll talk about goal setting and how important it is to have goals that are lofty yet also achievable. I think that's very important. But another important part of looking back, it's more than just goals. It's a bit of a reflection to say, hey, of the things that I've done, of what I've achieved, whether it was a goal or not, what am I grateful for? And I think that's, again, a little bit more out of the goal range, but it's a very great year-end, beginning of the year thing to say, what am I grateful for, and what can I do to make the most of that?
But we're also trained today in today's positive, feel-good society to never think of anything negative, and that means don't look back and don't focus on the negatives, move on, all that. And I think we do ourselves a disservice, I think I have through the years, by not spending some time and really looking at what didn't work as well as what I want to work.
I agree with that. So every year I do goal setting. So I know we have it in here as one of our bullets, but the frequency is, I like to set the goals. Now, I'm a little OCD. I'm going to admit it. I do my goal planning in October, November.
Oh, wow.
And then I look for the next year going forward. And then I do a checkpoint halfway through the year, and that's maybe May or June, and I'm like, how am I doing towards those goals? And then make a shift or an adjustment.
And are these just financial goals, or are these personal goals?
No, you have a great point. So I'm going to answer that in a second, but I'm going to finish the thought on the frequency. So when I do these goals, I think that it's important that, like what Bart said, I look back and say, how did I do? And I'm honest with myself. I'm not going to beat myself up if I'm not meeting my goals. But it's a part of accountability for yourself and for your family and for your job and for your business and for other things in your life. It's just kind of checking in with you and being real and raw and not necessarily beating yourself up, but saying, hey, I always start with 3 things. I set myself up and say, what did I do really well so far? What really worked really well? And what are areas that I can still use some improvement? And then what do I need to do from now until the end of the year to continue to make sure that I get close to my goals or modify them so then I still have a success at the end of the year. And corporations do that all the time. They adjust their earnings,
Obviously,
right? Right. So this is a very standard process, but in general, I think this is important of reflection, of reaching your goals, and but
you
not
know what, Bart-
necessarily giving up I mean, if you're not doing it doesn't necessarily mean you have to beat yourself up if it's not the right
I think that's part
goal.
of it. So you don't want to go back, oh, it didn't work out. I didn't lose the weight. I didn't make this. I didn't do that. And so you start feeling bad about yourself and you're like, forget it. I want to feel good this year. I'm going to turn the page, new day, all this kind of stuff, new resolution, everything. Bart says something, and every one of your show guests, your morning crew that comes in here from the workout gang, all says this. And I've said to other people how shocked I am. You guys don't just talk about what you're going to do, and I'm going to achieve this, and I'm going to climb a mountain, I'm going to do all this stuff. You start by what you just said, being grateful for what you've done. That's a concept I'm not familiar with. You know, we're always talking about the negatives. We're either living in the future when it's going to be happy, or we're dwelling in the past where it was bad. We don't stop and look at today. What am I grateful for today?
Mm-hmm.
It's such it's a mindset change for sure, but it's also somewhat of a life changer because it puts you in a state of mind, I think, to be more open to receive great stuff. I don't want to sound too like airy, if you will, but it's I find it to be true. And I think it's kind of interesting too. And I was going to have you, Paul, I was going to just poke at Letitia a little bit.
All right.
Not that she's OCD. Ask her when her tax appointment is.
Her tax appointment?
So not fair.
It's April 14th for me.
Yeah, so she's not April 14th. It's someday in January.
No, so because of my investments, I actually don't do that because of K1s. But if I could, I used to. But that being said, I actually do meet with my CPA in October, November, before I'm doing my annual goals, because I want to make sure I maximize all of my opportunities.
Well, that makes sense. For
before the year
deductions,
end. Yeah, to make sure that I'm efficient. And then I also want to make sure that I utilize my team and my CPA as part of my team, and making sure that my goals in the next year is saying, hey, how can I improve and do things better? And I'm always looking at striving for improvement, and for me personally. So I love the idea of meeting with them and having them give me ideas, or just making sure that I feel like, yeah, I'm on the right path. I'm doing the right
So
thing.
how many, you guys are both so super organized.
No, wait, hold on. Bart, when do you go to use your CPA?
That's actually not fair either.
Yeah, see. Yeah.
You call me out. Hold on. But I like I said, I go the year it's currently going on and the year before to prepare for the following year. So when do you go?
So I have planning meetings with my CPA prior to tax filing.
But for that current year? For previous year?
For planning, yeah. But let it be known that I do file on the latest legal tax day of the year.
Good.
October 15th.
God love you, Bart. Join the rest of us here. My father used to say when he'd watch the foolish people out at midnight, driving in with the last thing, they said, I'm always know that you're in there somewhere here.
That's right. So there was actually a commonality. Letitia and I have so many commonalities, but one, the fact that we work with people and we're their financial planners, but setting goals is also a way of planning, planning your future. And there is an adage that I think this applies to not only in your financial future, but with goal setting, is failing to plan is like planning to fail. Right. So if you don't set these goals in place and have some accountability and check in, then how will you ever reach them? Except by random luck.
Yep.
That's been my success.
Key to Paul's success.
Right, random luck.
Yeah, but I also think, like, if you look at goal setting in general, like, goal setting could trigger behavior. So, for example, goal setting should motivate you. And if you're being true to yourself and you're trying to figure out, hey, what's important to me? Where do I see myself in the future? Where do I want to be? And I always love to say, the end of the day, if my goal is to be here, that's up in the air, I have my hands in the air, and then I'm down here at the bottom of the tree, I need to figure out what do I need to do to get from where I'm at now to where I want to be. And so sometimes along the journey, I might not go straight up the tree. I might go down a branch and through another branch and go to the completely other side and end up at a totally different tree altogether. But at the end of the day, what you're still doing is you have growth. And you're moving yourself forward towards a goal. And at the end of the day, your goals sometimes change, like I said before, but you're still moving yourself forward instead of staying stagnant.
You pivot.
Exactly. So I wanted to kind of add to that. Like, for example, if you wanted to buy a car, right? Mm-hmm. And it could be something as simple as a savings plan. And we help clients do this when you're doing planning all together, saying, hey, great, I want to buy a new car for $50,000. But if you plan it ahead of time, you can say, I want to have $10,000 down. $40,000 I want to get in a loan over a period of time. I think I can save $10,000. So you have then you take this big goal you want to get at the end of the year, and then you break it down. So you have time to do some research on the kind of car you want. You have time to do research on what kind of loans are going to be the best for you and your family or you and your company. And then you can figure out, okay, great. How am I going to get that $10,000? So then you look at the $10,000 by December and break it down into a monthly increment, and that's $833 a month. But then you can look at your budget and say, okay, where can I carve out $833 a month so I have the $10,000 by the end of the year to buy my new car? And everything that we do, it's making big goals achievable by bite sizes. And so something you can do on a daily basis is maybe make a slight modification to your normal expenses to be able to reach your end goals by just a slight modification.
So we talked about this, Paul, if you remember, I had Bill Wooditch, my old gym buddy that wrote the book and is a public speaker.
Oh, yeah, right.
And we were talking about goals, and we both subscribe to the same comment or phrase that I use with my kids all the time. You get something that seems overwhelming and unachievable.
Yeah.
And in a goal standpoint, we call it a big audacious goal or a bag, right?
Mm-hmm.
Big audacious goal.
Right.
So the comment is, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So it's kind of the same thing. Once you can set up what your bites are, it makes even those big goals more achievable.
So here's the
Right.
question, though, that you got to answer in the last 10 minutes. All of this makes so much sense. Come on. We all know that. There isn't anybody out there that's going to challenge anything you said. And yet, without people like you pushing us, the normal human beings don't seem to sustain their goals or their plans very long. Am I wrong at that? Are most people very good at planning and I'm the only one that's not?
No, for me, it's kind of an addiction. So like goals sustain momentum, right? And you start seeing your progress on some of them once you're doing that. And then you're like, oh, I like this. And you keep on working at it. Like Bart, like you right now are doing a challenge for yourself for 60 days in eating healthy and working out differently. But what you see is the small changes from day to day. It gets exciting. You're like, okay, I like this. I can do this. I can continue it. And you're building a new process for yourself.
So do you need to have some reinforcement then along the way? Because otherwise it just seems like you're striving for something and you're not seeing it happen.
I think that's
weight
when you
loss or money or whatever.
If you bring it down to bite sizes, I think that's when you have your wins because you can see something attainable versus, oh, I want $1 million and then not knowing how to get there.
Yeah, and I think it's different for everybody. For some people, having accountability.
Yeah.
So what Letitia's referring to, we have a little group at the gym. A lot of the guys you've met already, Paul, that have been in here. Yeah. There's actually 14 of us, and we've set some body fat loss goals. And so we are...
As if he needs to lose any more body fat.
Oh, you chunky monkey.
I think I can
here.
donate some of mine.
So we are accountable to each other. Otherwise, we're going to be embarrassed with each other if we don't do what we're.
But I guess that's what I'm getting at. Without accountability, a goal is just a dream, and dreams often they can come true, but they often don't.
So I think this is one way to avoid it just being a dream. And I know this was further down in our talk, but like when I set up mine, so I'm just using myself personally now, I set up different categories. I do like a category for business, for friends and family, for health and wellness, financial, spirituality, personal / travel. So those are all different categories. And then I set up 1, 3, 5, and 10 years. So every year I have, it's a rolling 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 year. So if it's just a dream, then after 1 year, if you only have 1 year goals, this dream, it just kind of goes away.
Right.
But if that 1 year goal feeds into the 3, which feeds into the 5, which feeds into the 10,
Right.
you're constantly monitoring.
Right.
And then I take it again. I am so not OCD, but what
Not
I
at
do
all.
what I do is I have these. I type them up, of course, every year. I go to Kinko's and I laminate them. I don't even know if you know this.
I didn't know you laminated it.
Yeah. And so they're in the shower. So
Oh my goodness! So you look at them. I mean, you force
I look
every
at
day.
mine daily, morning and afternoon.
yeah, so every day. And
Yeah.
of course, I have them on my phone now. So it's I started before there were cell phones. I was doing this.
Yeah.
I just kept doing it.
And I think that's important is like what you also said is you remind yourself daily.
Yeah.
You remind yourself daily of what these goals are. And I think really, Paul, the difference is it's not necessarily a dream if you're taking small steps daily and you're reminding yourself daily that this is what you're going towards and you're taking action. You're not just, oh, I like to do this somehow, but you're actually have done the research. You have to figure out what you want to do and you're taking action and you're continuing with your action going forward.
So I'm curious. You work with very successful people, a lot of very successful people.
Yeah.
Is this, as they used to say, one of the habits of highly successful people, that book?
Absolutely.
Or are there highly successful people that you have to push?
All of the above.
Okay.
More on the, it's more common. Just like, the guys that are with me at the gym at 4 or 5 in the morning,
Right.
those tend to be more successful guys. Those same guys, a lot have been here on the show, do exactly what we're talking about.
And let's just say what Bart said in the beginning. He breaks down his goals. For example, sometimes we have our own expertise. So we work with sometimes executives, and they are amazing in their world of what they're doing and in their role as a CEO. But maybe on a personal level, they just don't have any more energy left or on a financial basis to get their goals. So then they rely on us to be able to help them be their quarterback, to be able to make these goals reality to them and saying, okay, how do we get you their bite sizes? And then we help them along the way to do that. And like what Bart's saying, a goal could be as simply as, I want to retire and I want to retire at age 65, and is my money going to last until age 90? And is my spouse going to be able to maintain until they live until 90? And then is our heirs getting anything?
That's
Those
the
are all
question.
goals.
Those are the
And we break them down and we get them there. And that's our job. Our heavy lifting, what we do for our clients, is that we help them get there and we help them design that path along the way. And we check in all the time.
I have never written down a goal in my life. I'm sorry to say. That's terrible. I admit it. Am anybody out there? Come on, nod. Give me some support here. I've had goals. I've thought about them. But I hear what you're saying, and I hear people say that over time. And you not only write them down, there's something when you're committing to it, when you write it down, and then put it in front of you. Oh, my God, that'd be horrible. I have to look at it every day. And
Well, it depends. Like, for me, it motivates me. It encourages me. I don't know. What about you, Bart?
For sure. And I had read once, and somehow it stuck with me, that there is basically scientific proof. There has been tests that once you put pen to paper and write something down, you have an exponentially higher chance of getting something accomplished. And then add on top of that to look at it regularly. So once you've written it down and now you're looking at it, you've just increased your odds by 90%.
wow, something as simple as that. All right, well, there's a takeaway from today. Don't just have a goal, write it down. So how many goals do you look at on a daily basis? So because you got 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, personal, spiritual. You must have spent 4 hours looking at your goals every day here.
No, it takes just a few minutes, and depending on how long my shower is that day, maybe it's just the 1 year, and some days I'll make it through to the 10.
Yeah. And so you literally just mentally check them off, say, oh yeah, 5 years I want to go climb Kilimanjaro or something here. 2 years I want to.
So and you don't even know this, Letitia. So I take it one step further, and this might be.
I like he thinks that I can read his mind. This
Yeah.
is good.
This might be-
I'm liking how we're going here.
This
Yeah.
might be a year of sharing. So I actually take the goals and then I create my BART vision statement, and it's a front and back page, and I've actually written out my future.
Yeah, I know where you got that. I'm not going to even say.
Wow.
I have done that.
So
too.
you've seen the future, and it's there.
And so many things on it have already happened, and so I updated it accordingly. And as time goes on, as I get older, but
There's a coach that you took many years ago, and I took as well with different organizations that actually had you go through an exercise and you visualize your future. It's your dream, Paul. This is your dream, and this is when you say, "Okay, great. When I'm older, I want to have this house, and I want to have this type of environment, and I want to have this type of."
It's actually slightly.
Feel.
It's you're just about there, but it's
you paint the picture.
right. But as if you're living it now.
Right.
I am vacationing on an island. I have a vacation home that my whole family uses. It's happening now.
Business partners.
Yeah, right.
I have an amazing
Radio show
business partner.
producers. Yeah, right.
But I agree. So I've done that same exercise, and they say that let's go. Like I've done also multiple steps of that, like a vision board or vision, and then you're creating this vision of what you want it to be, and you're mentally picturing it, and then you also that's reinforcing yourself and of what your goals are. But Paul, everyone's slightly different of what their goals are. But I think my big takeaway is, for me personally, it's somewhere that I can hold myself accountable. It's something that I can take myself to the next step of where I want to continue growing and striving to. I don't like to be stagnant. Bert, what is my number one pet peeve?
Wasting time.
Wasting time. So goal setting makes me
Really?
feel good.
Wasting time is a big pet peeve for you.
Oh, you have no idea.
You don't just sit in the car line waiting to go through the drive-through or something. Or, I don't know.
She walks in my office, I'm not ready to have a conversation with her, and I make
I walk
her
out.
wait. She's like, I
Really?
can't waste time. I'm out.
I come back. I'm like, let me know when you're ready.
Wow. Wow.
So I'm thinking that one of Paul's primary goals is how many days he's going to wear long pants.
That's it.
And a hat.
And a hat. That's it. I live that every day. I look at it every day here. Does it help to have lots of goals or little goals? Some people have said just have one or two, and some people say no, have 1,002.
I think it really depends on what motivates you and where you are. Like what Bart said, like if you're in business, you can have business goals and things that you want to achieve. If you have relationship goals, then you strive for that. It just really depends on where you want to go.
We have a show host. I won't call him out and embarrass him here, but he told me, like all of you guys here, have been very successful in life. And he said once a year, he and his wife go away to retreat somewhere. And, whatever, just not a retreat, just escape somewhere. And don't just sit around at the pool or whatever and say, oh, honey, what a great year. Pop some champagne. They actually get like a little conference room wherever they are one day, and they sit there like two business people, and they sit there and say, all right, what did you like about me this year? What didn't you like about me this year? What could I do better to be a husband? What could I do better? I said, oh, my God, you guys are freaks.
Whoa.
I've never heard of anybody doing that.
Well, I'm sure, Tish, that's your thing, isn't it?
Do you do that? Do you do that?
So I do with my husband. We
Oh,
do
my
date
God,
night.
you guys are freaks. I never heard of this.
Yeah, I do it quarterly actually with my
Oh,
husband.
my God, I do it daily.
No, I do it quarterly, and I pull up our goals
Oh, my God.
as a couple and say like, hey, are we on track with how we're treating each other, and how are we spending time together, and are we not neglecting our children? Is business is good? Is our finances in good spot? Like, are we hitting our goals that we want to hit? And we touch bases. Now he doesn't ever initiate those meetings. It's actually I usually set up
I'm
a
going to tell you
sitter.
why. He doesn't want to hear it.
We hit our goals. We hit our goals, and I'm pretty proud of that. But I think it's because we're always kind of looking
You're
at
the
it.
two people I never knew anybody did this. I mean, I know you try and reconnect and say, hey, once in a while, hey, honey, how are things going? And you kind of have a sense of each other if you've been together as long as I have with my wife here. But to sit down, I can't imagine us actually sitting down. Okay, here, point sub 4, number 3 here. Have we?
Yeah. So here's
enough
a
here?
personal share. As I learned from Bart this last year, and he is so good about date nights with his wife. We do a lot of events as a business, as a company, and connecting with people. But it's also super important to be able to take time with our family. So I took a play from Bart's book, and we're getting a sitter on Friday nights, and my husband and I are going to date night because it's important to invest in ourselves as well. So it's just people in your environment, but that was an idea, something that he took.
Now, I'm older than you guys here, and I remember watching my father and I grew up in a nice upscale neighborhood. Everybody was in CEO, executive or CEO or somebody here. These were guys that spent no time with their families because they were spending 100 hours trying to make it. And that was what you were supposed to do. If they weren't ever trying to factor in more time. It was, we just all had to accept and sacrifice, kind of. Sorry, Dad, that was part of the goal when you signed on here.
Yeah, for sure.
And I don't hear that as the common dream anymore here. The guy who, what keeps Sammy running, or whatever that book was.
Because it's not Sammy anymore. It's Sammy and Sam. Like male and female work.
That's true.
So now it's like we really, not because we have to, but we want to, and we have personal goals. And like, for example, I don't have to work, but I make a difference in people's lives, and we love it. I know Bart's like making fun of me right now because he knows and I
hear a lot of your other clients, and you talked that about. So work in some time for you, work in some times for the family, work in some time. That's part. It's a holistic approach. It's not just about how can I maximize. I got 20 years to make money here, or to make it in my career, or whatever.
It's not just about money. It's about.
It's not. I mean, I'm sure those people exist. Just face it. But the kind of clients that Letitia and I work with are just more like us. We just attract more people like us and like our other clients, because they get referred by other clients, and they're family oriented, and they're health oriented, and they're
goal driven,
and they're philanthropic for the most part. So.
So they want to do something more than just make money, because there are an awful lot of people out there at all levels. I see it, the poor Vietnamese shop owner that has 4 shops, and he's going from one to the next here, one after another here. They're working themselves to death here,
Yeah, it's life balance. That's also important.
So, we are just, I'm surprised Paul
goals
didn't cut us off.
Well,
Where goals went over a little bit. You want to give some of our tags, and then I'm going to close with a quote. I think that can be the thing for the year, is I'm going to come up with one of my favorite quotes.
Oh, I like that. Okay,
close
cool.
us
So you can always find us online. And then you can search us on Zandbergen Report, Wealth Strategies and Investment Wisdom, and we are all over the place, so which is really exciting, and that's because of you guys liking us and tagging us and listening to us and commenting. And if you haven't recently, do it again. Tell us what you like about our shows and share it with a friend. So we're here for you guys. I think that's something you guys should always know, is this is clients come to see us for this information, and we're here for you. So Zandbergen Report, and then you can find us on Instagram, you can find us on Facebook and Twitter and iTunes. Paul, anything else you want to add?
iHeart. You're on big stuff. Yeah, you're everywhere. You're missing the big ones here.
All right. So my closing quote today is going to be on discipline, one of my favorite words in life. And I think this also applies to goal setting, because I think there's a level of discipline with goal setting.
Yep.
And discipline this isn't the dictionary definition of discipline. This is one that I've found that I like, is willing to do the things others won't do to have what others can't have.
Oh, I like that.
Oh, I like that one. Say that one more time. That's a good one here.
Discipline is willing to do the things others won't do to have what others can't have.
Wow. That really, there's a lot of truth in that. I can think of a million examples. Good stuff, guys.
All right.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. We'll see you in studio next week. Cheers.
Tune in next week for the latest edition of the Zandbergen Report, Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Catch up on our recent shows by visiting bartzandbergen.podbean.com. The Zandbergen Report is also available on iTunes, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. Interested in being a featured guest on our show, or have a question you'd like to hear us answer? Email podcast@bartzandbergen.com. Bart A. Zandbergen, CFP, and Letitia Burbaum, AIF, are registered investment advisors with Optivest Inc. and registered representatives with Gramercy Securities Inc., member FINRA and SIPC. Investment advisory services are offered by Optivest Inc. under SEC registration.
OC Talk Radio. Streaming, not screaming.
We're back here with Charlie Wright, who's had a show with us for 4+ years on alternative investments. And I'm just curious, what have you learned in that time, Charlie?
You know, Paul, it has been fascinating. We have interviewed, as you well know, because you've produced every single one of them here. Well, we have interviewed economists, newsletter publishers, authors, but primarily CEOs and chief investment officers and portfolio managers of investment strategies that are a bit outside the mainstream. And that's why they're called alternative investments.
Yeah, it's not the typical buy and hold stocks and bonds type of
That's
approach.
Right. And these interviews have just been fascinating. I remember Danielle DiMartino Booths. She's a gal from Wall Street, got a master's degree in journalism, started writing for the Dallas newspaper, and she was hired by the Dallas Federal Reserve. Then she worked for them for 9 years and then wrote a book. We interviewed her about the book. Fascinating stuff. She was there at the Fed in the crisis of 2008, and she has some great insights and opinions about what happened and about the economists there who had all these PhDs. But number one, they all signed up for groupthink, and that's what
Sure.
they do. They, You know, it's anointed at the top, and there's groupthink. And then they were typically unaware of what was happening in the real world.
Insights you couldn't otherwise get.
That's right. It was fascinating. And we interviewed another guy on that same subject of 2008. And he knew the 4 groups of people in The Big Short, the book and the movie. And I had
think
read
he
the
worked
book.
for Credit Suisse.